Hey, what is up guys? Eric Thayne here from Cinema Mastery, and today we're going to be talking about editing. So the video you're about to watch is actually taken from my new Pro Editor course, which goes in depth into the entire post-production stack when it comes to editing, sound design, and color grading. Inside, you get tons of training videos teaching you everything you need to know about editing in order to create edits that are exciting and capture people's attention, but that also tell a compelling story, which is the most important part of editing and filmmaking in general. In addition, you also get tons of downloadable assets like cinematic music packs, LUTs, and practice footage that you can use to really take your edits to the next level. So I'll put a link to that down in the description below so you can check it out after this video. But for now, let's go ahead and jump into the video. Okay, so in this video, we're going to be talking about 4 ways to fix badly shot footage in post. Now, obviously, you always want to try your best to get your footage looking as best as possible in camera, on set, so that you don't have to fix it in post, like they say. But there are always those situations where something happens, there was something you didn't notice, something unexpected happens with your camera, your exposure, or something like that, and you have to be able to fix it in post. So we're going to talk about a few different ways that you can do that, taking care of footage that you somehow maybe messed up on in camera, and we're going to get it right in the editing software. So the first way to fix your footage in post, and honestly this is probably the best way, is just to go through each clip and find the best parts. You can actually get away with a lot of things by doing this, by just going through and finding the moments that work inside of each clip. You might have an entire clip that's shaky or noisy or something's wrong with it, and if you just go in and find the moment that happened to work where the camera just stayed steady for just a little bit, long enough to get the clip that you need, you can actually bypass a lot of issues there. I've done quite a few travel videos with iPhones, and with iPhones, sometimes the footage doesn't always work out the way you want it to. The exposure might get messed up. Little things happen here and there that you can't really account for. And I've had a lot of people asking me, how did you get the iPhone footage to look so good? And the honest answer is that, well, I just go and I shoot a ton of footage, and then I take only the very best pieces, and that's what I put in the final clip. So you can actually solve a lot of problems with this alone. So for example, with this clip here, I've got a clip shot on an iPhone here, and the movement just doesn't really feel good. It's a little bit shaky at the beginning. There's a few moments where the exposure kind of changes, where I kind of reset to do another take. But then there's this moment right here where suddenly this guy just walks into frame and everything's smooth and perfect. And then right at the end, it kind of gets shaky again and things get messed up. So what I would do here is I would go through and find that moment, cut through all of the stuff that's shaky, where things aren't working, and right where it smooths out and this guy starts walking into frame, that's where I'll start my clip. And I can go from there to about right there, and now I've got a really nice clip that looks really smooth. Nobody needs to know that I did a bad job shooting it at first, but only that I got that moment and it worked out. All right, so next up is stabilization. Regardless of whether you're shooting on a gimbal or handheld, sometimes your clips can come out a little bit too shaky or not really as smooth as you're going for. And so you can use stabilization plugins within your software in order to stabilize the footage. And these have actually gotten really good over the years. Now you can't take a clip that's just completely wild all over the place and make it look like it's shot on a gimbal, of course, but if you need to add that just little bit of smoothness to your shot, this works out really well. So for example, I've got this shot here of this couple dancing on a table, and I'm doing this little dolly in effect on them, but I was doing it handheld. We didn't have time to set up a dolly and get a really smooth shot here. And besides, anyway, I like the handheld natural look for this video. It made sense. However, this clip just came out a little bit too shaky and a little bit over the top. So what I'm going to do here is I'll go to my effects and I'll add in Premiere Pro Warp Stabilizer, and you'll have a similar plugin in other editing software as well. Like pretty much every editing software has something that allows you to do this. What it's going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to analyze the frames, and then it will give you a clip that is smoothed out. Now, if I put this at 100%, which we'll do right here, the smoothness at 100%, you'll notice that I'm going to get a really, really smooth shot. And it's actually pretty impressive how far these stabilization softwares have come and what they're able to do. But you'll notice if you look closely, there are some kind of warping effects happening, especially if you look at the lights or some other parts of the image, and we don't want to have that. Plus, what this is giving me is a nice, smooth, kind of like a gimbal shot, which is not what I was going for in the video. If I was, I would have just shot this on a gimbal. So what I want to do is, and what I do in a lot of situations, I actually take this smoothness and I'll turn it down to like 1%. Okay. And that seems like really low, but it's usually just enough to give me just the right amount of stabilization that I want. And I could find a clip in there that works, you know, if I extend this a little bit further. So I don't want something that's going to be overly smoothed. I still want it to have that natural handheld look, but by bringing the smoothness down to 1%, I'm able to get a shot that is still looks handheld, but is a little bit smoother and just a little bit nicer for the video. Now, another thing you can do with stabilization that's really handy is if you're shooting a wide landscape shot and you shoot it handheld, but you want it to look locked off like it was shot on a tripod, you can actually do that as well. So in this instance, I was shooting this image of this barn. I wanted to get a nice locked off shot, but I didn't have a tripod with me. So I just shot it handheld. I held the camera as still as I possibly could to get it as good as possible. And you'll notice that it's only a little bit shaky. I already have stabilizer on this. In fact, if I turn that off, you can see the original shot was like that. And then this is what it looks like with the stabilizer on it. It's a lot smoother, but it still has that movement. So if I want this to look locked off like a tripod shot, all I have to do is come in here and change smooth motion over to no motion. Now in Final Cut, this is going to be called tripod mode. In Resolve, this is called camera lock. It might be called something different in your software, but it works the same way. And by doing this, you can now see that the shot looks completely locked off as if it was shot on a tripod. All right, so third is noise reduction. Now, everybody's been there. There's always those situations where you end up shooting a scene that's really dark. You have to bring up your ISO or bring up your exposure in post in order to make the image light enough to be able to see what's going on. And you end up with a lot of noise in your image. Well, lucky for you, there is a way to fix that. So most editing programs actually have noise reduction built in. So in Resolve and Final Cut, you'll have options there where you can dial in the settings and get it just right for noise reduction. In Adobe Premiere, you don't actually have noise reduction built in, so you have to use a third-party plugin. I like to use Neat Video or Red Giant's denoiser software. Or if you have the full Adobe suite, you can always dynamic link your clips over to After Effects, and there is a noise reduction plugin there. And fourth is color grading. So if you've got a clip that you shot and maybe you messed up a little bit of the white balance or the tint or some of the other colors in the shot just aren't working together really well, you can use color correction and color grading to fix that clip. So I have a clip here in Premiere that I shot on a recent project, and you'll notice that the lighting looks good, except it's a little bit green and a little bit too warm for how I want it. So what I'll do is I'll come into here in my color panel and I can actually dial out the temperature to make it a little bit cooler, and I can dial up the tint to add a little bit more magenta look to the image. And notice that just by doing those two things, I've taken the image from looking too green and too warm to looking a little bit more natural and normal. Now there's a lot more that you can do with this. You can change the colors of things. You can obviously with color grading add a more creative grade to your images, and a lot of times that can solve a lot of problems. Now ideally you want to get your colors right in camera, just like with all of these things, but color correction and color grading can be a huge help when it comes to solving some of maybe the color problems that you had on set. All right, so there you go. There's 4 ways to fix badly shot footage in post. Again, like I said earlier, you always want to try to do these in camera and get things right before you're coming into post. Ultimately, you'll get a better image by doing that. But in some situations, you don't always have the option of doing that. Something happens and you've got to know how to fix it in post. So there's a few ideas for how you can use your software to solve those problems that you maybe had on set and get them taken care of in your editing software. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you liked it and you want to see more content like this and really start upping your game as a film editor, I highly recommend checking out my Pro Editor course, which I'll link down below. This is a massive training that goes in depth into every aspect of the editing process so that you can learn how to edit amazing films that tell amazing stories. Plus, we're running a sale on the course right now, so definitely check it out. If you're already a post-production master, then that's totally fine. But if you're the type of person that wants to learn editing and really start making cinematic films, then check it out at the link below. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about it, feel free to let me know down below, and we'll see you on the next one.